everything I've been working for and paying off is gone overnight. Never kill your ambition. Ambition is what brought me here because I've always believed and just never let anything scare me.
Yeah.
I look at something and if I know who's with me, I know who's behind me, why would I fail? So I just go.
Welcome back to our newest episode of the LUNATIC CEO podcast. I've got Paul Frantchuk with me here today. Man? I'm really excited about this because Paul, we've recently become good friends.
Yeah.
And he is the CEO and the owner of TJ Nisbet Construction, which I'm going to have him get into that a little bit more. Incredible founding story. He bought the company over a period of years after having put in a lot of work, learning, grinding, building, adding tons of value to said company. And I think the insight that it brings in him sharing his story is really profound because a lot of times we think we have to start what we're going to own and keep. You know, you really successfully added a lot of value, gave so much trust, and then killed it and became now the owner, the CEO, and is taking it to whole new levels. I mean, it's a regional company that's going national in the construction space. We're going to talk numbers so you get a really good idea of the massive scale. But all in all, thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, happy
I
to be here,
appreciate having you. All right. So with that said, let's start. Like founding story, like what inspired you to go start working for TJ Nisbet Construction? Then, you know, have the vision to be like, I'm going to take over this company one day. Yeah. I'm going to take over this company one day. I am going to buy out the owners. I'm going to take this thing to the next level. Like, talk about that. Just go right into it.
Well, before we get into anything further, my wife is a 51% owner.
Okay, that's true.
I'll give credit to my wife.
Now, Julie is your woman-owned business.
Yes, we are a woman-owned business, which comes with its own perks.
Yeah.
That also helped us reach the next level.
Yeah.
In time that I think God's hand was over us, though, because if I listen to him, he takes me there.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the pivotal moments that we had to take in the company to be able to succeed and move forward. And when COVID hit, I'll tell you a little later where we rode that wave.
Wow.
Because we were able to be a woman-owned company.
Wow.
In certain things. So, but backing up a little, you know, I dropped out. So a little interesting.
High school, college, middle school?
I dropped out of high school. I think it was like 9th grade I dropped out. I remember my dad going, "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" And I was like, "Dad, I can't." Like, and not only that, I was getting into trouble.
Yeah.
So I had to go. But my dad told me, like, there's two things. One is in life, because my dad has a master's degree in railroad engineering.
Okay.
So my dad's a big boy, especially back in USSR.
Yeah.
Or Soviet Union. So he's like, there's two ways you can do life. One, you go to college, get a degree, and work smart, not physical. The other side of things is you're going to work your butt off. You're going to work physical, and if that's the choice you decide to take, and then you're on your own. You do what you got to do. And so I started doing that. I dropped out of high school, and I started working for a hardwood floor company.
Really?
And I did hardwood floors for years. I got married, so I worked for Beaverton Wood Floors. I worked there, and then I met this guy that owner of Decca Hardwood Floors. And they're the ones that were doing skyscrapers.
Okay.
Like the whole Pearl District.
Okay.
We were doing all the interior hardwood floor build-outs.
Okay, so you're doing the hardwood floors in 10-story buildings and stuff.
10, 12, 30,
whatever. Getting some vision for what could be.
I love how you're thinking. But at that point, I didn't know what I was doing. So I'm working, but the company decided to go union.
Okay.
And here I am coming from this privately owned company, going into a company like Decca that decided to go union, and all of a sudden my wage jumps.
Yeah.
I'm making high 20s, low 30s, and we're going back to 2000. Let's say 18 years ago, 19, 20 years more even, roughly.
Yeah. That was a great wage back then.
It was an amazing wage. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I got married. It's been 17 years. We've been together with my wife. Yeah. So it's before I even met her. So I'm working for this union company. I'm making great wage. I'm happy. I'm working in downtown Portland, or I get to a point where I was running my own buildings. I was a foreman for the company. And then one day, so I got married, 8 months into it. The guy's like, "I'm going to move you to Seattle." Bellevue specifically.
Oh, he wanted to relocate you.
Well, yeah, because we landed 2 massive twin tower projects over there.
Okay.
And we needed to do a build out of interior hardwood floors.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay. So he moves me over there as a foreman, and I was running those twin towers. He did not come through with his promises. I'm like, and I call him. I'm like, look, I relocated for you. We were a freshly married couple, yada yada. So I jump from working and doing hardwood floors to interior build out for another company that's doing millwork, doors, all of it.
Is this more commercial still or residential?
Oh, this is still in the same tower.
Oh.
I go from hardwood floors to the interior, running the interior build out as a foreman assistant, but the scope is a lot broader. A lot more.
Yeah.
So, and I remember one night, we were driving with my wife. I think we're celebrating our first year anniversary. We went to the Space Needle, and I remember driving with my wife, and I had a weak moment where I told my wife, I'm like, hey, babe, aren't you proud of your man?
Oh.
I mean, look what I've achieved.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And of course, my wife was stroking my ego, going, yeah, babe, you're such a great man.
You're killing it.
You're killing it out there. That was my first mistake.
Yeah.
Because 4 months later, it was also going into the time where the recession was happening back in 2008.
So this was 08, 09 area.
I show up to work and I get my last check.
Wow.
Completely blindsided. Like,
wow.
Whoa. Like 4 months ago, I was just boasting that I'm this, killing it out there, working for a union without a diploma, which is unheard of because anytime you go work for a union company, they want to see your credentials.
Yeah.
Like,
you have to have qualifications.
Exactly.
People don't know that, but yeah.
I didn't have them.
Yeah.
And so to be there, part of a union, was a big deal for me.
Interesting.
So I lose my job.
Wow.
I'm going to zero.
That happened to a lot of companies back then, huh?
Yeah, it did.
It just kind of hit them hard.
On those buildings, we had enough work for 5-6 years, but because the bank stopped funding, they only funded enough to finish the exterior envelope of those multi-story buildings.
Yeah.
But the interior, they wouldn't fund it, so they're like, finish these projects, let's close the envelope, let's make sure that we can preserve the interior of the building, and we're putting everything on pause. And so that's what happened.
Wow.
So here I am, I lose my job.
Okay.
That's my first recession. And I went through 3 of them.
How old were you at this point?
Oh my gosh, I think I was 25.
Okay, so you're 25 in 2008.
25.
Okay.
Roughly.
Yeah.
We decided to move back. We already had my first daughter, Vanessa. And we decided to move back to Portland. We moved back to Portland, and I go work for Riverside Carpentry.
My brother-in-law.
Your brother-in-law. No joke.
My brother-in-law owns Riverside Carpentry, exceptional luxury carpentry.
They do great work.
I had no idea that you worked for Dan.
Yes.
That cracks me up. This is so good.
I work for Dan.
Okay.
I work for Dan.
Okay.
And then we decided to go part ways.
Okay.
I decided to open my own flooring business.
Okay. So you went the flooring direction. He stayed carpentry,
Correct.
obviously.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I opened my own flooring business. I'm going well. I buy all new. So I fly to South Carolina. I go through Bona training. Bona was the first company that was doing dustless systems back then. And again, I'm a hardwood floor specialist, so I know the trade in and out. And I was like, what do you mean, opening my own company? Easy. But I had a challenging component with the funding. So my in-laws, they let me borrow things like 30 or 40 grand to buy the equipment.
They help you bootstrap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I did. I bought all the equipment, certified equipment. I mean, I'm loaded with equipment, okay? And I'm working. And I remember a year goes by or two, roughly. My wife's pregnant with a second child.
Yeah. With Jordan?
With Jordan.
Yeah.
And I get paid, and I'm holding a paycheck, or more like not a paycheck, but more like a payment for the work I did.
Okay.
And I was like, this is my last payment that's gonna put me to zero, and I'm done with all my debt.
Okay, yeah.
My van's paid off, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, there's gonna be enough. There's like, I think it's $2,000 left. I'm like, that's gonna be enough, because my sister-in-law's trying to throw a baby shower for my wife. I was like, I'm gonna surprise her. I want to do something nice to her. So I pay off the full debt. I'm like, we are debt free. I was going to tell her that.
Yeah.
And so I pay that off, and I book a hotel at the Nines. And I decided, we go out, we spend the night at the Nines, Portland downtown. We come back, and then baby shower surprise.
Yeah.
So we do that. On Saturday morning, I get a phone call in the morning.
Yeah, what happened?
Hey, Paul, where's your van? I'm like, what do you mean, where's my van? My sister-in-law calls me and goes, hey, your van, your trailer are not here. I'm like, yeah, I'm calling my brother, because my brother would borrow it every once in a while. So I call my brother, and my brother's like, no, I didn't touch it. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't touch it? Turns out I got robbed at night.
What?
So
tell me you had insurance.
here's an issue.
Oh, no.
I had insurance, or I thought I had insurance.
Oh.
But when I called my agent, he's like, well, you didn't like the policy, how expensive it is, so I decided to pull it out.
He dropped coverage, or he just didn't renew it.
I'm like, and I had no idea.
Yeah.
So everything I've been working for and paying off literally is gone overnight.
Okay, I did not know he was going to say any of this. This is a real life example of why it is so important to protect yourself. And it's the silly, stupid things that can take you out. I mean, you had a vision of going somewhere, doing something, and I think that this just speaks to a bigger point, which is we never really think about the rocks under the water.
We really don't.
We put a lot of trust in other people, and we don't actually safeguard ourselves. When building companies, doing business, trying to go further, your ambition can get the better of you. And
Absolutely.
you can think you're insulated from anything wrong.
Oh, my goodness.
And then the simplest, stupidest things happen, and you need help, you need a bailout, you need insurance, you need a good friend. And I mean, this is an incredible story. Keep going.
So please call Rudi.
On the insurance piece, maybe call you though for advice, because you've got a wealth of it, my friend. I love it. Keep
but here's the cool part.
How did you get out of this?
So here's the cool part.
Okay.
I learn off my mistakes.
Yeah.
Thank God.
You have to.
If I don't, the second time happens, I mean, it's ridiculous. So I learn off my mistakes. But nevertheless, because I'm a Christian man, and because I believe in God, I trusted him.
Yeah.
But at that moment, God was teaching me. It was a character development. Let's put it that way.
It's facts.
Are you kidding me? So
how do you deal with hard things?
I lose it. I tell my wife, and she goes, "Well, what are we gonna tell parents?" I'm like, "You don't understand. I paid your parents off, but now we're to square zero.
Now we have and I need a van.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What?" So she's trying to keep her composure because we're going into this baby shower from my wife.
This is not working out how you wanted it.
Absolutely the opposite of how I wanted it to work out. Are you
so
kidding
disappointing.
me? And I go into this week season of self-pity.
Yeah.
And thinking that, God, why?
Yeah.
What the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
I am loyal.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything right.
Yeah.
How do I find myself back to square one when I just recovered from it?
How are bad things happening to a good person?
It's not fair.
Right?
Like, I'm not doing anything wrong. This was an area where my belief was being tested as well. But at the same time, so I go into this place of self-pity and just drowning myself in sorrow. Like, poor you. And one evening, my wife was like, "Hey, babe, listen, just do this one thing for me. Let's go to these friends' house. They're having a gathering, and we'll just hang out. Get your mind off of things. Like, you need to reset. You need to pull yourself together," which I will stop for a second. The importance of having a great woman by your side.
I was just going to comment on that, man.
Business owner, and she plays a big role in my life.
Yeah.
Further in our discussion, I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because of her, there's a few moments where she like slaps you, not literally, but with the things she says, it's like, oh.
She's a great partner.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's important that any businessman, any man that wants to succeed in life, I think having a great woman by his side is a huge factor.
You know, I want to. She's just as much CEO as you, which is which is
maybe more.
I feel. I almost feel bad because, like, I actually want to have her on. I want to have her on after you at some point and interview Julie, because just to give some highlight on this, like, I want you, Paul, to go into how you guys have done this together too. I think many people don't realize that it is totally doable to work with your spouse.
Absolutely.
But you very much have to be on the same page, and you have to have the same vision. You have to continually be monitoring that and then growing towards that.
Yeah.
And it can be a beautiful marriage of minds.
It is.
Some of the biggest influencers today are couples, Alex Hormozi and Layla Hormozi. They're a superpower couple. And I think we're getting into a day and age in which people are moving back to that because they realize the importance of a family.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
And when you bifurcate those two things and you live separate lives, it destroys the nucleus of family.
Oh, absolutely.
And what I'm hearing in this is you got through so much stuff, expectations that weren't met, hardship, just like these little things that we look back and go, we're little, were monumental in the time. But your relationship, not only with God, but with your spouse is what's carried you through. So I think it's incredible. Shout out to Julie. She's an amazing woman.
She is. Love her to death.
We camp together, all of our families.
We do.
She's cool. Your daughter makes a mean cheese quesadilla. But anyway, keep going on this because I'm enthralled right now with everything you're talking about.
So we continue, right? So at this point, we go to this evening event.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm minding my own business.
Okay. What year is this right now?
Oh, my goodness.
This is kind of after kind of the crap hit the fan with 08,
I think
09.
like
You're back in Portland.
9, 10.
Okay, so now it's like 2 years after 2010-ish.
Yeah, around it.
Okay.
And I remember I'm sitting there, and I'm feeling out of place. Because, like, I'm still driving my own sorrows.
You're insecure at this point. You're like, ugh.
I'm trying, well, in my mind, I'm blank, but at the same time, I'm mad at God. Honestly, like I was mad at him because I was like, God, till this point, I've relied on you, I've trusted you, I've done everything I could, but here I am finding myself at square one, where I started with
How
nothing.
could you let this happen?
How?
Yeah.
Like, and I remember I come up to my wife, I'm like, babe, remember that discussion we had at home that when I say we're done, I need to go home, you were gonna agree and we're gonna go home? She's like, yeah, I'm like, right now's the time. She goes, babe, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, let's go. So as we're walking out, there's a guy that comes up to me, goes, hey, before you leave, we have to finish with a prayer. You can't just walk out like that. I'm like, no. That was the last thing I wanted to do.
Was pray.
Are you kidding me? I'm mad at him.
I get it. I do believe you. I get it.
I'm, in a sense, I hate using the word depressed, but I was.
You were dealing with depression.
I was dealing with this.
Yeah, it's very real.
Nevertheless.
Yeah.
He wouldn't take a no for an answer. So we pray. He comes up and goes, God has a word for you. Like, what is it? He goes, find me.
Wow.
You don't know me.
Wow.
And I'm like, say what? I grew up in a Christian family. I went to church all my life. What do you mean I don't know you? Like, are you serious? I'm mad at you and you're telling me I don't know you?
You're hitting so many things right now.
What in the world?
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, it stirred something within me. And I'm driving like, oh yeah, I don't know you? You were there when I needed you. Where are you now? And things started stirring within me. My wife looks at me and goes, but why don't you get to know him? I'm like, okay.
What a little dart.
So, nevertheless, I decided to reset.
Good for you.
I talked to God and I said, listen, this is where I was learning that God is simple. This is where, as growing up, my parents, they're very traditional, strict, like.
I mean, think about the culture they came from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even when they start their prayers, it's very specific how they even start their prayers, as if they're going before the biggest king of all rulers, which he is. But at that moment, I was driving and said, very simple, God, I'm going to need your help. And if I don't know you, help me get to know you.
Come to my level.
Next morning I wake up, and I get this thought called D. So D is a sales guy for Mona, who I bought the equipment from.
Yeah, for your flooring company.
Yeah. This thought came to my mind, goes, call D.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I'll call D. I prayed, and I said, you know what? Whatever's going to come my way, I'm going to start taking it. I called D in the morning. He's like, hey, Paul, what's going on? I'm like, I need your help. He goes, what is it? I'm like, I got robbed overnight, and there's a pause. He goes, what do you mean? I'm like, all my equipment that I bought from you, everything is gone. He goes, can I put you on hold for a second? I'm like, sure.
Oh, man, I don't want to interrupt you, but I think I know.
5 seconds later, he goes, hey, just so you know, about a few weeks ago, I sent exact equipment to Seattle. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I'm like, you need to order it. And I waited for my equipment 3-4 months when I ordered it.
Yeah.
He goes, that exact same set I sent to Seattle about 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, is it for someone allocated? He goes, no, it's not. I'm like, so what are you implying? He goes, go pick it up.
Exactly.
I'm like, are you sure? He goes, yeah. I'm like, okay, what do I owe you? Like, I can't pay you right now. I need to. He goes, go pick it up.
Well, he gave it to you.
I'm like, okay, I'll go pick it up. But I'm like, when I pick it up, me and you, he's like, yeah, let's talk in a week. We'll settle how we want to take care of this. I'm like, okay, great. So here I go driving to Seattle with my dad. I take one of his business vans, and I'm driving to Seattle to pick it up. I pick up the equipment. He even called Emerson Hardwoods up in Seattle. It was at 9 p.m. where one of the guys showed up, opened the warehouse, so I can load everything up. And so I loaded everything up. I'm driving home, and I start going back into work. I start, you know what, God, you're right. I don't know you. Because now all of a sudden, I said I want to get to know you, and you're showing up. That means I must have taken a wrong turn somewhere in my spiritual life.
So you're thinking, you're seeing all of this like favor, these miracles happening. I mean, honestly, you call your buddy and he just like, he's so gracious. He gives you this new package. I thought he was going to say, yeah, someone called me trying to sell your package.
No. That would have been
because that has happened so many times with people.
True.
It got stolen. Being in insurance, things get stolen, and then it goes on Craigslist the next day.
Yeah.
But you are seeing like what I would articulate as like the favor of God, the grace of God, the power, the miraculous.
But that's one of the beginning
happening, and you're realizing though that it's like you're thinking, oh, I'm performing well, or I'm trusting you in certain ways, and so you're rewarding me.
Yeah.
But you're getting somewhere else with this.
So I go pick it up and I start working. Within a month, I land a job that's enough profit to pay off all the equipment.
Okay. So you got another opportunity here.
So here I am working.
Yeah.
I called D once. I called D twice. Till this day, I never paid him.
D never would accept it. Wow.
D did not accept the payment.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, we'll collect it later.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll collect it later. Don't worry about it. Just keep working. Just keep doing your thing. Till this day, I never owed a penny for him for that equipment.
Wow.
And so for me, that's a favor. How that resolved on his end, I don't know what he did, how he did it, but I saw it as a favor of God's.
Yeah.
Because no matter how much I tried to reach out. And so things started going well.
It's radical kindness, man. I love that.
But here's where we men, tend to make mistakes.
Yeah. Please share.
We start to think that now things are going great. We start to rely less on God.
Yeah.
In the sense of maybe less talking to him about your current situations. Instead of planning with him, you're planning on your own. And so here I am expanding my business, and I got employees. Now I'm running 2-3 crews, and we're working in the Portland airport doing projects at night, during the day. And I find myself lost in the business, neglecting my wife and 2 kids. And that was a pivotal moment for me because we hit rock bottom with my wife.
Wow.
We actually called it quits.
Wow.
We said, tomorrow morning, we're getting a divorce.
Wow, this was when? Are we in 2012 yet? Are we in 2013?
Oh, man.
When was that?
About 12, 13, maybe even 14.
Okay, so
actually, 8 years from today. 8, 9 years from this year. So we're in 2024.
So back.
So
this
we're
is
going to go
2016.
back 2016.
Okay, so we're in 2016 now. You've been working very hard. You're trying to do what's right.
I'm sorry, I'll correct you again. I'm sorry,
Okay.
It was 12 years from this
12
year.
years from
12
this year.
years, yes.
Okay, so this was 2012.
2012, yeah.
2012.
Yeah, 2012,
Okay, 2012,
correct.
2013.
Yep.
You're trying to do what's right. You're working hard. You're going after things, but you're neglecting priorities.
I'm never home.
Yeah.
I'm running around, never home. But my expectations for my wife, where's my dinner?
Yeah.
Where's my laundry? Like, what are you doing? And she's the only one taking care of the 2 kids.
Yeah.
And so we hit rock bottom.
Wow.
To a point where we said, we're done. I go to sleep that night, and I promise you we'll get to the point where TJ Nisbet became very relevant.
Bro, keep going. This is incredible. I think this is more valuable.
So I wake up in the morning. I couldn't sleep that night, by the way. God was messing me up.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like, Paul, are you serious? What are you doing? Yeah. You have 2 kids. You have a wife that you promised to love and to cherish till death do you part.
Yeah.
You're quitting? Yeah. I'm not a quitter.
That still small voice is
are
just
you
speaking to you, and your mind is racing.
It's racing 100 miles an hour. I wake up in the morning in tears.
Yeah.
I got messed up at night.
Yeah.
And I told God, you know what? I promise, if I promised on stage or before my wife, before you, that I'm going to take care of my wife, I'm not going to give up. Yeah. So I go downstairs and I looked. That was the first time I've ever separated with my wife at night.
Wow.
We're always together. And I remember going downstairs and I looked at her, I'm like, I'm not ready to give up. She looks at me and goes, me neither. So we sat down and we exposed ourselves. We became nude spiritually.
Wow, bro.
Literally.
Wow.
I told her what bothered me.
Wow.
She told me what bothered her. We broke it down. We prayed with it.
Yeah.
And we reconciled. And we invited God. Before that, I used to always grow up thinking, there's church, God, family. At that moment, that night, I had a revelation.
Wow.
That it was like, no, it's husband and wife family planted in church, God-centered. So
Say that again.
husband and wife having God-centered in the relationship, planted in church.
Everything comes from that.
But I had it all upside down.
How'd you have it?
I had it God, church, family. So God's number one, church involvement is number two, family. Well, you'll get the rest of me.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
Wow, you are hitting so many.
But now it's like that night revelation was like, what are you doing? You have to have a God-centered relationship.
Yeah.
That is planted in a church.
Yeah.
And that's the only way it's going to work. And so that's what happened. We did just that. But then the church wasn't the place, so God was really at that moment working on my character.
Yeah.
But God wasn't done. As I was continuing to work, we reconciled with my wife, we started focusing, and I started backing away.
So that started looking like, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but what that looked like then is you and your wife now are communicating together on things.
Oh, are you kidding me?
You're
on the
being
next level.
more attentive to her needs outside of just the business and providing.
Yeah. And it wasn't easy.
You're working together and you're learning how to do so over years.
She can attest more to it, but to me, it was more like I promised God that I will have zero expectations towards my wife, but all expectations for myself. And so there were times I would come home from work, and I look around, and it's irritating because some things are not done. I would just bite my tongue. I would go do it. And I remember my wife
speaking to me.
And I remember at one moment, my wife looks at me and goes, why? I'm like, what? She goes, why are you doing what you're doing? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
She goes, the more you're putting love on me, the more you're throwing love at me, she goes, I want to love you even more.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we have this shift in our relationship.
Yeah.
A massive shift to where my wife and I were inseparable.
Yeah.
We communicate. We have, interesting part is, someone asked me, what's your guys' expectations towards each other? We're like, we have none. We have expectations towards ourselves, but not towards each other.
How do you balance, pause for a sec. How do you balance not having expectations in a relationship, yet needing to have expectations to fulfill certain responsibilities in your business?
That's a good question. Because when you expect both from yourselves individually,
you take the responsibility.
You take the responsibility
fully.
And if you messed up, you say, I messed up. I couldn't do this. I'm sorry. I came short. Help me, or give me a moment. I'll correct this. And I will never, that's actually one thing that we promised each other when we reconciled, is we never throw each other's failures, shortcomings at each other's face.
That's good. It's a great rule.
We don't do that.
That's amazing. And so you actually don't do it any different in business.
No.
You just have both risen to the place of being responsible and humble to each other.
And humble to each other, correct.
And working through it together. I think that is, despite being married or anything, I think that is the healthiest way to grow and build and accomplish.
Yeah.
Whether you're trying to build a business, make money, raise a child, adopt a child, build a church, craft beautiful woodwork. Like, when you're working with people in an environment of, we want the best ideas to rule out. We want what is priority, which is not me being right or you being wrong, but is, let's accomplish this together and both take responsibility and work with each other and help each other get there. It translates far more in the tone you take.
It does.
Does it not? It translates so much more in the way you treat each other, the way you talk to each other, the thoughts you have about each other, than like, we follow this structure, you know? And so it's like you and your wife, for example, you and your business partner.
Yeah, literally.
You guys came to a place of respecting each other, valuing each other, and going, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Let's make it work. This is how we're going to do it, by supporting each other, taking full responsibility, and growing.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And so you guys get to, I would imagine, 2015, 2016.
So here's what happens next.
Yes.
I developed carpal tunnel.
Really?
On both of my hands.
Wow. From all the working.
From all the hardwood floors.
Yeah. I'm surprised not your knees.
Well, my knees, I would get my knees drained every 3 months.
Dude, man, I've heard this too many times from people who do this.
I was messed up.
Wow. Physically.
Yeah. And I remember I was driving home from Seattle. I was doing a Henry's Tavern refinish interior.
Love that restaurant, by the way. That's where I took my wife for like our first date.
Oh, really?
Like our real date.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I refinished the floors, and I'm driving back, and my arms spasmed. And as I'm driving, I'm driving like this.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm with my wrists. I can't even, my hands hurt so bad. And I remember as I'm driving, my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, younger brother, he looks at me and goes, "Are you really going to do this the rest of your life?" And I looked at him and I'm like, "What's my other option?" And he goes, "There has to be something different."
You didn't have vision for it at that time.
I'm like, "What else? I'm not I don't have a diploma. This is all I know. What else do I have to do?" And I remember coming home, and my wife looked at me, and we talked. A few days go by, my wife looks at me and goes, "Why don't you call your friend Tom?" And I'm like,
this is where Tom comes in. Okay.
I'm like,
this is where
call my friend Tom. I'm like,
so curious.
What is Tom gonna do? She goes,
wow,
go work for him. And I'm like, let me call Olga. So Olga is my wife's sister.
Okay.
That works for Tom at that moment. She's worked there for 2 years already. And I'm like, I'm gonna call her and
Tom
test the waters. He's the owner of
TJ Nisbet.
Founder of TJ Nisbet since 1979.
Okay,
that's when the company was established and became TJ Nisbet.
Yeah.
So I call Olga, and I'm like, "Hey, just out of curiosity, if I was to talk to Tom, do you think he would hire me?" She giggles, and she goes, "Paul, I don't think so, because every employee that he's hired lately within the last 2 years have bachelor's degrees."
Okay.
I'm like, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, in project management."
Yeah.
And she's like, "I highly doubt he'll even consider you." I'm like, "I knew it. That's fine. No worries." So I hang up. My wife looks at me and goes, "No, you need to call him." I'm like, "No." I'm like, "You're Olga." And so we kind of went and we kind of brushed it. I swept it under the rug.
Yeah.
Another month or two comes by. Tom calls me and goes, "Yo, you want to take lunch?" I'm like, "Sure, let's go have lunch."
Wait, Tom calls you?
Well, I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I'm doing Project Henry Tavern was for Tom Nisbet.
Okay, cool.
So I started doing projects for TJ Nisbet Construction Flooring.
Okay,
on restaurant.
So you were a flooring subcontractor
I was a flooring
of
subcontractor
the general contracting, tenants improvements, commercial build out, which is TJ Nisbet.
Which is TJ Nisbet.
Yeah.
And we developed a relationship with him.
Yeah.
Where we would go out to lunch and he would ask me questions about some wood and we would just bounce things back and forth.
Yeah, he's a good business owner. He relationships with the subs.
Yeah. And for me, it was a positive thing because I got to learn things off of him. And if I have a relationship with him, he's going to hire me more often. So it made sense.
Yeah.
So we go out to eat and we're sitting at Applebee's. I remember on Sunnyside. I remember him looking at me and goes, "I am tired."
Wow.
Like, and I look at him like, "Tired of what?"
You think he's got it all so easy.
He goes, "I am tired of working and I'm thinking to shut TJ Nisbet down."
Wow.
And I sat there and the first thought that comes to my mind is, goes, "Here's your opportunity." And I looked at him, I'm like, "Have you lost your mind?" And he's looking at me. I'm like, "I would kill to run TJ Nisbet." "What do you mean shut down?" He goes, "I'm done. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I lost my last project manager because he went to work for Hoffman."
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm tired of having these guys that come out of college use me as a stepping stool. They'll work for me for a year, 2, 3, and then they move up to the next company."
And this is where TJ Nisbet, what's TJ Nisbet doing annually in terms of, let's talk numbers in terms of construction. Like, the cost of a project is $1 million. What are we doing there at that point?
Back then, when I came in, Tom his average job projects were like 800,000.
Okay.
700,000.
Sure.
No more than $1 million.
Right.
That was his average project.
Right. Sub $1 million. That's the level that he was at per project. And he's probably doing how many of those projects a year?
He was doing about, a year. I think he would do 30 projects a year.
Okay. So roughly he's at $30-40 million, give or take.
No, less, because his largest was $1 million. Okay. So it's less. It would be 500, 700, 300.
Okay. So he's in the $20-30 million a year range. Hoffman, for example, they're at hundreds of millions.
They're hundreds.
So you're dealing with a situation in which, a $0 to $30 million company is struggling with good talent, using them as a stepping stone to go higher.
Yeah.
And the founder is getting exhausted.
Well, yeah, he's tired of it. He's like, what in the world?
Common problem.
He goes, "That's not fair."
Yeah.
And so I looked at him and I'm like, "Why don't I come work for you?" And he looks at me, he starts laughing. And I was like, "What's so funny?" He goes, "You come work for me?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "But you know nothing."
You know nothing. It's true. I mean, I love that he said that straight up.
I'm like
his reservations are like, "What are you gonna do?"
And I'm like, "I know something."
Yeah. I mean, you actually know more than those guys.
He goes,
probably,
"What
to
is
be
it?"
honest.
I'm like, I estimate floors.
Yeah, that's true.
I know
you
something.
You know how to run some teams.
I'm like, but something more. I'm like, I'm ambitious and I learn quick.
Good for you.
And he goes, Paul, do you know how to estimate a full building? I'm like, no, but I can learn.
Exactly.
He goes, do you know anything about site work? I'm like, no, but I can learn.
Yeah.
He giggles. He goes, come on, man, like, are you serious? I'm like, Tom, I mean, we're talking like friends, and I'm just telling you, like, I could help you.
Yeah.
Here's what you can do with your flooring. I'm like, I'll figure it out. I'm like, the reason why I'm asking is because I'm struggling physically. Like, I have carpal tunnel, and I'm like, I can't do this much longer.
Yeah.
So he like dismissed it, and we kind of finished our lunch. As we walk out in the parking lot, I look at him, I'm like, hey, Tom, think about it. He giggles, and we go our separate way.
Okay.
I'm like, all right. So I come home. My wife's like, how'd it go? Like,
she's got all these expectations.
Are you kidding me? Did he hire you? Is he?
Yeah,
I'm like, no, he laughed at me.
Yeah.
She goes, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, he laughed at me.
Dude, the amount of times, pause. The amount of times, when you have I firmly believe when you have a faith in God, when you believe in the creator of the universe, and you can sometimes get this boldness and this courage to walk into a room and say some ridiculous things. And the amount of times people have laughed at me too, but I don't think there's been a single time that it hasn't come full circle.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I love it.
But I don't care. But I don't care if someone laughs at me, you know? Like,
no, you don't.
What's
it's
the worst that can happen?
Exactly. They say, no, you keep moving on. It's like, let's challenge the status quo. Let's go for it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I come home, and my wife looks at me and goes, let's pray about it. I'm like, absolutely, let's pray about it. I'm all for it. So I pray that, and I told, to me, when I pray about certain things, I teach second year in biblical economics at our church.
Yeah.
And one of the things I tell my students is that when you pray about something, remember it. Don't just throw things out. Remember what you pray about and how you prayed about it.
Yeah.
Because it's huge.
Yeah, journal on it.
You can miss
Write it
an
down.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Here's why I underlined this. Because I remember I prayed and said, God, if he calls me, I'll take the job. If he doesn't, I understand it ain't your will.
Yeah, you made the decision, you documented it, you journaled on it, you were like, hey, I'm settled, I'm going to leave it now, and now I can clear my headspace and go do what I need to do,
Yep. A few months go by. I get a phone call from Tom. Let's meet for lunch. Okay, great. Let's meet for lunch.
Took a few months, but he thought about it.
We sat down, and we ate, we started talking, then he goes, so let's hypothetically say you can work to me.
Yeah.
How would that look like? I'm like, I want to run your company.
Yeah.
He goes, no, I understand, but like,
where do we start?
Where? I'm like, you tell me. Put me in a place and I'll show you that I'm worth it. Okay, fine. What do you want to get compensated? That's a big factor.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, minimum $35 an hour. When I worked for Deca Hardwood
He's laughing.
for a union,
He's like,
he looks at me and goes,
but
good. You know nothing. I'm like, I understand. You made it quite clear, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I got to live. He goes, Paul, you're not worth more than 18.
Exactly.
And I looked at him, I'm like, have you lost your mind? I'm like, you're asking me to take 50 steps back financially because my hardwood floors business is doing a lot better than making $18 an hour.
Yeah, sure.
He goes, think on it.
What risk are you willing to take?
And we walked away, and again, we're leaving on the parking lot. He looks at me, hey, Paul, think about it.
He threw it back at you.
I'm like, oh. So I come home, and of course, here's my wife. How did it go? I'm like, he'll take me at $18 an hour.
Yeah.
She goes, well, wow, that's low. That's low. But then she comes back at me and goes, are you going to take it? And I'm like, I'm not sure. She goes, but I'm like, $18 an hour.
Yeah.
She goes, but how did you pray about it? That was a slap that put me in a place.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I never prayed, God, if Tom offers me $30 an hour, I'll take the job. It was more like, God, if he offers me a job, I will take it.
Yeah.
And so I remember a few days went by, I looked at my wife, I'm like, if I'm going to take this, I want to make sure you're on board.
Yeah.
It's going to be financially challenging. It's going to be tight. She goes, I'll take a job. I'll go get a job. We'll work on it together.
Yeah.
But she goes, you cannot continue working the way you are.
Yeah.
And so I take it.
Good for you.
I took it.
Good for you.
But we sat down, we started talking. And on the way out, I looked at him and said, Tom, I'll take the job under one circumstance.
Yeah.
He looks at him and goes, well, what is it? He goes, anything. I'm like, when it's time to sell, I'm the buyer, and I'm going to buy you out. He looks at me, shakes my hand, goes, okay, with a laugh, and walks away. And
that's what you rested on for all these years.
Yeah.
That shake?
That shake.
I love it. I respect it.
That shake.
There's been many a times for myself as well. I've had to rely on a handshake or a loose agreement. And at the end of the day, you either trust the people you're working with or you don't.
I trusted God. Because God, if you're the one that's leading me there, that means everything outside of that is going to work out.
So how did you feel about him at that point then? I mean, for people that might be in a situation like this.
Honestly, I didn't even think about him. To me, it was like, God, if you're an author of my life, and this is where you want me to go,
I love it.
I'm just going to go with it. Now, whatever the outcome will happen, what's the worst that can happen? I will gain experience.
Yes.
I will gain all this knowledge.
Yeah.
There will be a window, an opportunity that I'll be able to pivot if needed, but it's that knowledge.
Yeah, and it's the ability to serve others and contribute and add value. I think this is a market. I ask these questions and I kind of push you in this direction because too many times we think about the other person on the other side of the table. We think about the other people involved.
Correct.
They're people. They will fail you.
Absolutely.
And they are not God. You are not God. At the end of the day, your life has to have purpose. And if you are adding value and serving in a community, and you know what, you may not feel like you're being compensated enough. But I tell you what, if you're learning and you take that mindset, like you are going to make this so profitable for yourself and everyone around you, you will win.
Always.
No matter what, you will win. And it has won for you.
Yes.
So
in many ways.
There's a lot of light at the end of this tunnel. So keep going, though. I love this. Keep going.
So I started working for TJ Nisbet Construction knowing nothing.
Okay, this is what year are we at now? 2016?
14.
Okay, so a lot's happening
14.
Very quickly, year over year.
Quick.
Year over year, things are really
going, like, we were sitting in the setting with my brother-in-law, because my brother-in-law has been there, my wife's younger brother.
Yeah.
He knows. He's seen it. My struggles and all that. And someone made a comment like, man, like, you've been through life. And I remember he paused at one moment. He goes, no, you guys don't understand. Life's been through him. And in a way, it was true. Because
I've never heard someone say that. That's really good. That's really fitting.
But through that process, at that moment, I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
I thank God because there was not only character development, there was mental development.
Yeah, toughness, grittiness.
There was, are you kidding me? There was so much learning that was taking place for me.
Yeah, 100%.
It was schooling.
Yeah.
I didn't go to school, but that was a life school that I went through.
You learned more in that degree than anything you could have had in school, man. I bet, yeah.
And so here I am grinding.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you don't understand. The first 2-3 years were the most toughest because when I came in, he threw me in as an estimating role and a project management role, all at once.
You want to see your capacity.
And at that point when I came in, he scaled things down. They were down to like 2-3 projects. When I came in, he brought me in, and he's like, run him.
Figure it out.
And I'm like, what do you mean run him?
See what you're made of.
He goes, here's our superintendents, go for it.
Yeah.
The stress I lived through, I remember going into meetings. I would intentionally schedule phone meetings, to avoid sitting at a table with architects, engineers, owners, reps. I mean, we're doing projects for McDonald's, Wendy's.
Yeah.
We, as TJ Nisbet Construction, just a little side. We do restaurants, from high end to fast food chains.
Yeah.
We do concrete tilt-up industrial builds. We do not skyscraper, but we do apartment builds. We do mall builds. We do. It's a huge variety that we do now than we did back then. Back then, it was just restaurants. That's all he specialized in.
But it were for national chains, typically.
A lot of them were national chains. I mean, if you think about any restaurant national chain, we've built them. I think
McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, all
we've
of them.
built 60% of McDonald's here locally.
Yeah.
Burger King's, Taco Bell's, Wendy's. I mean, I can go on. In Clackamas Town Center, like where we have, it used to be like Macaroni Grill, Romano's Macaroni Grill.
Jumper down there.
Those buildings we built out.
Yeah.
Like, we built a lot of buildings. So
That's
nevertheless, as I'm working there, I'm scheduling these meetings because I don't want to look like a fool that doesn't know anything. So, no joke.
You're learning language. So the stress that's coming is really, it's the stress you're kind of putting on yourself.
Well, yeah, because
in many ways, because you want to do well.
Well, yeah.
And you realize you're a little out of your shoes.
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
If I'm going in a meeting with an architect engineer or owner's rep, and they see me as an incompetent or a person that doesn't know anything, they lose, the company loses credibility.
Yeah, it's the reputation, it's credibility. I get it.
I cannot do that.
Yeah, you got to learn the language.
So I'm sitting at my computer. I have them on speaker. I have the drawings in front of me, and I have Google on the left. And as we're talking, and they're bringing up words that I have zero idea about or what they're talking about, I'm jumping on Google, and I'm like, and then I would repeat the question if I didn't understand it fully, as if, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it or I misunderstood. Can you repeat the question? And I refer to the page that I can see what they're talking about. And that was going on. And I remember after the meeting, I would sit there and I would just soak in.
Yeah, it's exhausting in a way, right?
Are you kidding me?
You're like, oh, okay, yeah.
Oh my goodness. But things became easier because I was soaking it in.
Yeah, you were learning, man.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, I would be driving to a meeting and I would call my wife and I'm like, babe, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't know what this meeting is about. Help me. Like, pray for me. Like, I don't know what's going to happen.
So this point right here is why I've suggested to many people at times, young guys specifically, if you want to actually expedite your growth and maybe you want to serve your family business one day, get yourself in an environment in which you can pay down your ignorance debt, right? And it's a relatively common phrase now because some famous people have been saying it, but you need to pay down the debt you owe society for not knowing anything. And
well put.
And that's going to cost you. And if it doesn't cost you, it's not worth it enough for you.
Worth it enough.
So I've offered, like, work for me for a year for free. You're still a teenager.
Yeah.
The environment that you're going to be in is going to be so valuable to you, and you may come out the other side having so much more clarity on what you actually want to do with some skills and ideas and concepts, because people don't realize it's not just about like the technical skills you learn. It's actually far more. I'd say 70 to 80% of it is actually learning how do you navigate this industry, this world, this language, this vernacular. How do you get the deal done? How do you persuade certain people who are experts in what they do to do something? Because they love doing that. That's leadership. And you learned leadership. You learned leadership.
I learned more than just leadership. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It developed me in many ways. My personality, self-control. Man, absolutely, because you're dealing with people of next level that I didn't know. You know, at least at that point. But grinding and going at it all the time. I actually hired a guy not too long ago. He asked for a job. I'm like, okay, I'll pay you. I remember like low 20s. But I'm like, if you want to become a superintendent, you got to start from the bottom. You need to understand what needs to happen. So first day he shows up on the job site, I'm like, clean the windows. He's staring at me and goes, is this going to teach me how to be a superintendent? I'm like, you have no idea
what it's going to teach you.
So I looked at my superintendent. I'm like, show him how to clean the aluminum frames of the storefront and the windows properly. He goes, okay. So he teaches him. He's clean it day 2, 3. He's like, we need to talk. This employee. I'm like, sure, I'll stop by the site. I stop by the site. He goes, tell me how in the world is cleaning windows going to teach me to be a great superintendent? I'm like, you missed everything. You only see it from, have to clean the windows. This is like the lowest job of all jobs, I guess, in his mind. But I'm like, you don't realize the lesson that I taught you. He's like, give me one thing that I should have taken away out of cleaning windows. I'm like, if you were a superintendent and you know how hard it is to clean these windows, you would have protected them and known better. And he's staring at me. I'm like, and I looked at my super and I'm like, you had no idea how hard it is to clean these windows. That's why you never protected them from the splatter of the concrete.
Installed them properly, or the splatter of the concrete.
The splatter of the concrete, because the storefront goes in first before we do the sidewalks. So we installed it, but he didn't protect them. So the splatter from the concrete went onto the
windows. You made him clean them.
You have to clean them now. So as a superintendent, next time you know that when you're pouring concrete up against the windows, what are you going to do?
Protect them.
So there's a lesson in everything that we do in life.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to there.
Of course.
In terms of like, are you able to actually do something that's necessary for the business despite what level of hierarchy it is? Like,
it doesn't matter.
Get over yourself.
You know how many times I've showed up to a job and swept the floors?
Come on, exactly.
It doesn't bother me.
I'm with you.
So
a million times over.
It's the mindset.
Yeah. And you need to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
If you want to be a leader, truly, you need to enjoy actually getting in the trenches at times and earning the respect of your team.
Correct.
I firmly believe that.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And so, needless to say, he never made it. He ended up quitting because he felt like he was
a mindset issue.
Instant gratification that people want nowadays. Yeah. They're used to that drive-through mentality. If I want something, I pulled up, ordered it, I got it, I took off.
Yeah.
No, not in any. If you want to be a business owner, you can't do that. That's not how it works. It takes time, grinding. Are you kidding me? Development. It's not an overnight success. You know how many times guys ask me, what's your success story? If you only knew, my response is, if you only knew. It's not sunshines and rainbows and stars and all this greatness. I'm like, what I had to go through, honestly, I wouldn't recommend anyone. Because I went through the trenches. I went through the hard part of it.
Yeah.
And this didn't come easy. So for you just to see a success story, if you ask anyone, there were hard times that we had to go through that now we're able to manage this based on what we've learned and what we went through.
Oh, dude, I got a story for you. A lot of people think that I inherited an insurance agency from my parents. Because my mom is very put together, and she saved her money. She's worked for United Airlines for 57 years.
Oh, wow.
She's top 10 most senior flight attendants in the whole world. And but she doesn't make a ton of money. She's just very intelligent, and she's German, and she doesn't spend a lot. And so a lot of people think my mom is like super wealthy. And I laugh, and I'm like, she is wealthy, monetarily, et cetera, but you don't understand what it took for her to get there. And you know, where I came into play, they thought I inherited this insurance agency. I actually inherited over $250,000 in debt, day one. I had to fire 6 people because they were stealing from the company. I was still in school trying to finish up one of my degrees. I was going through a divorce that was quite nasty, that has kids involved. And it was really, really hard. I turned down a job where I was going to be making like $150,000, $160,000 a year with incentives on commissions to work for somebody and in a sales role. And I was like, wow, this is like my dream job. And I'm in my mid-20s, like 25,
right?
You know? And I'm like, but I couldn't. Like, deep down in my gut, I'm like, I feel like I need to add more value, not just make money. That was a lot at the time. I would equate that to like
absolutely.
$350 here.
Back then, that was a big money.
Yeah, and so I'm like, this is 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I looked at my mom, I'm like, fine. I'm like, I'm going to move back home. I'm going to find a cheap car on Craigslist. I found a Ford Focus on Craigslist. I love that car, by the way. I love it. Ford Focus on Craigslist. And I'm like, you're going to have to help me. Like, you're going to have to literally pay my bills. I don't have really any, but like, I'm going through this divorce. I'm going through this. I'm going through this. And I'm like, and I'm turning down a really good job. Right. And my mom looked at me and was like, I want you to keep your father's reputation. My dad was a really good man. But he'd just been diagnosed with dementia.
Right.
And part of firing those 6 people, they were stealing from the company. And that was part of the big debt. And we had large accounts, all the Muchas Gracias Mexican restaurants. The owner is actually named Rudi as well. We were insuring all of them, and they were booming.
We built Muchas Gracias.
Did you? That's awesome. Papa Murphy's was like a big account. There's a bunch of people locally, auto body shops that you would know. And were these small-time people doing some pretty big things because my dad was so good at helping people. And I got that from him. I think so, because I genuinely do care. Yeah. I'm willing to write a renter's insurance policy for somebody despite the fact that I make zero money on that. My time for money, I lose money, but I want to add value. So long story short, I mean, I remember days specifically. There was a night when I was sleeping at the office. I had this old couch, and I was just crying myself to sleep. And it's midnight. I've been working all day. I'd just gotten done basically failing an exam that I had to take to finish off a degree, and so I'm super disappointed. Prior to that, I'm having to work the entire day. I screwed up on a commercial auto account. I wrote the policy wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote the wrong symbol, and I ended up having to pay the people back. I told them, I'm like, don't file a claim on my errors and omissions. I'm like, that will ruin me. I won't be able to afford those premiums. So I told him just straight up, I'm like, I'll make it right. So over a couple of years, I ended up paying him back. I paid him back pretty quickly, actually. It happened within about 12 months, but...
That speaks of your character, though.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't want to have debts.
Right.
And you want to do what you can to make it right. And again, if you're focused on adding value and you're less focused on the dollars, despite the fact that we can be honest, like it's a game for us, it's fun, we want to make money, it's awesome. But man, value first. I just remember those days of grinding, man. I mean, just you're waking up early. All you're thinking about is the business. All you're thinking about is growing.
Yep.
And you've got a bunch of other things coming at you. But what I learned was the character piece, and that what is actually a true joy is knowing that I'm going through this and I'm running a race that requires endurance, and I will finish and I will conquer it. And it's because at the end of the day, that is what's worth it. I don't want to make $1 billion and be alone.
No.
I want to be somebody that people want in the room, adding value to their life. And if we have nothing, we have each other.
Correct.
As stereotypical as it is, this is what makes people.
Yep.
So when you talk about this kid, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
That he couldn't clean the damn window.
Look, at the end of the day, it goes back to, you can get to $1 billion.
Yeah.
I think if anyone sets their mind to it, they can get to $1 billion.
Yeah.
But in that process, if you don't go through this character development, that $1 billion is going to ruin you. In reality, you're not going to be a true person. You're not going to be true yourself. Exactly. Because I believe anyone can achieve greatness, but more often than not, you're not a true person. You're not a right person. For example, Tom Nisbet gave me he always said, he's like, Paul, every time you do projects, remember, there are more people that you don't want to do business with than the people that you do want to do business with.
That's good.
So remember that and always go by that. Don't just grab every customer that comes your way and think you're going to want to do business with them. He goes, filter them out. Because the minute you find someone great, for example, one of the things that we did was we switched to woman-owned.
That was genius. Talk about that. That's incredible.
So my wife, I brought her in. She used to work for Kaiser.
Okay.
So she went to work for Kaiser when I went to work for TJ
Medical
Nisbet.
billing, right?
Medical. Dental side.
Dental side.
And so she's working for the dental side of things, and I'm working, grinding at TJ Nisbet Construction, growing, trying to understand the business. Not only understanding the estimating side of things, but understanding the project management. I even took on projects where I superintended just to understand what it's like to be a superintendent.
All the moving parts.
Then I started understanding the billing side of things. I started understanding the insurance side of things. Still keeping my job, still keeping my position of being a senior estimator and project manager, but trying to expand my knowledge, my understanding, because I knew that whether I use it here or someplace else, I'm going to need it. And so grinding that and putting that value into the company, maybe not here, I looked at it eventually, but maybe someplace else is going to pay off one way or another. But you do it, right? You set your mind to it, you progress. But most of the time, there were days actually where I lost sleep. See, some people, they deal with stress differently. Me, I get triggered a loss of sleepness, sleep apnea, whatever. Or no, it's not sleep apnea. It's where
you just can't sleep.
You just can't sleep.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the doctor. 3 weeks of no sleep. I felt one night like there's bugs crawling under my body, under my skin. And I'm like, this is wrong. Like, this is not right.
I don't know how you did.
Well, I was like, go to the doctor. So I go to the doctor, and they started testing me for every single disease out there. And here's another little challenge where they're like, have you slept around? I'm like, no, I'm happily married. But do you know if your wife has? I'm like,
what a wild question.
Like, are you serious? We're happily married. So you think. I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. Nevertheless, they tested me. I show up. A few weeks later, they did all the blood works. They're like, there's nothing to be found. But that day, there was a doctor, older man, that came in because my original doctor was sick. She was out. So this guy looks at me and goes, let's just talk. He goes, there's nothing wrong with you. But let's just talk. What do you do for work? And we start talking. He goes, I'm going to prescribe you a vacation. And that was the first time I went on vacation. After working for TJ Nisbet, I think it was like 6 years or so. Right? The company, during the time while I was working, we grew. We started diversifying, going into a woman-owned business. So Chase Banks is one of so we're a preferred vendor for Chase Banks.
Right.
Chase Bank is one of the companies we work for. We build through CBRE. So Chase hires CBRE, and we work with CBRE directly, but we're a preferred vendor. So that means all Washington, all Oregon, and other states, we pick up the projects.
Where's your expanse now? You're Washington, Oregon.
So we're in Washington, Oregon, California. We're in Montana, Idaho, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Nevada.
Okay, so Western region.
Western region.
Okay.
Correct.
And yes or no, or are you planning on going out further?
For now, I'm going to stay where I'm at.
Okay.
We're looking to launch a second location office in Arizona because right now, a lot of these states, they're remote. We're remote in a lot of these states.
Okay.
But we're actually looking to open a full-on blown office in Arizona.
Great.
Which is interesting because now Tom is interested to come in and help me.
Okay. Reinvest?
He's looking to invest
Yeah.
and get the Arizona office going because he actually lives there now.
Oh, incredible.
So he moved there.
That's fun business.
It is.
That's
and
good.
for him, he's like, I have so many connections. He's like, I can help you explode that market. I'm like,
absolutely.
let's do it.
Okay, so now you guys are doing Chase Bank, your preferred vendor. Your wife's involved in the business. You're turning it into a woman-owned.
Yes.
Wow.
We turn it into woman-owned.
Yeah.
And then COVID hits.
Okay, now we're in 2020. Oh, jeez. Yeah.
If I go into many details,
Yeah.
it's going to take forever. So I have to start
Yeah.
taking skips a few steps. But we're woman-owned.
Okay.
I pushed for it. Tom was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, we need to go woman-owned. Why? Because Chase will hire a woman-owned general contractor, even if you're higher than they were to hire a normal general contractor.
Even if you're higher in price, it's because of the tax incentives, right?
Not
And
only
different
tax
subsidies.
incentives, not only that, but because Chase has this diversity requirement.
This is real, people.
No joke.
This is very real.
It was either I was going to turn into they them, or my wife become the owner, and so we did. So my wife owns 51 shares.
Okay.
God bless her heart. But you know what's cool? She never treats me as I'm less.
No, she allows you to lead too.
But she allows me to lead.
Yeah.
She has her position where she really dominates.
Yeah.
But I have my position where I dominate. And she understands that. And we understand that. And we respect that.
You own your roles.
Absolutely. And that's why
not about
earlier when you
anything else.
asked, well, how do you guys, we have our own expectations towards ourselves, knowing that if I took on this position and this role, I'm going to rock it. And I'm going to do the best. So when COVID hits, all of a sudden, non-essential work is to cease.
Right.
No inspections, nothing. And we have a lot of projects going at the time, and all of our projects go to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
We laid off all of our superintendents, all of our employees. And I'm sitting there one day, I'm like, this can't be right.
Yeah.
I call Chase Bank, and I go, is there any way we can pivot and continue building? At that point, we were building 3 or 4 Chase Banks. They're like, let us talk with our attorney. Within 2 days, we got this letter from the attorney of Chase that they sent to the city saying, if you do not allow, we're a financial institution. We can't be shut down for more than X amount of days. You delaying the construction will require us to have that branch shut down because of the delay, and we have leases that come to an end. We have to move forward.
Essential work, yeah.
Now we are deemed essential for those projects. So what do? We pivot. I grab every superintendent, I bring them to the office, said, listen, you guys want to do work or do you guys want to sit home?
Yeah.
Well, they're like, we want to work. I'm like, then what we're going to do is we're going to do our own foundation, we're going to do our own concrete, we're going to do our own framing. Let's pivot and go. And we did.
Incredible.
We pivoted. Everybody was working. Everybody was happy. And as that non-essential thing was coming off, we started transitioning. We started putting our superintendents, hey, let's resume this project. Let's resume that project. So that's why earlier when I said we diversified, we became a woman-owned, because when hard time came, like COVID, and a lot of people weren't working, we continued to work.
So that classification allowed you to work as a non-essential or as an essential business? As an
essential business.
On top of just the pure fact of getting like everything, all the financial pieces together.
Correct.
But it prioritizes you, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's almost like sexist in a way.
It is.
Which is,
if you think about
interesting.
it.
But just to be very candid, like that's kind of wild to me. Although I'm aware of that. It's the same thing with opportunity zones.
Yeah.
Too. They'll allow you to finish projects in an opportunity zone. Which when I opened up one of my Geico agencies, it was the building we bought was in an opportunity zone, and part of the reason why I was able to operate through COVID because I was in an opportunity zone. I was in an opportunity zone. And so there's tons of loopholes. But with that being said, you made a good point. You asked your superintendents, do you want to stay at home, which they could have, and still made money, or do you want to work? They said, we want to work.
Yeah.
How did you build that culture?
We take care of our employees.
Yeah.
They understand that if they're valuable, Well, first of all, every employee in our company is valuable. We give yearly end-of-the-year bonuses to every employee. Doesn't matter if you're a janitor, doesn't matter if you're a front desk, doesn't matter if you're a superintendent. Obviously, everybody gets a piece based on their position.
Yeah, and their performance.
And performance, but we still share. Not to mention that throughout the year, a lot of my employees, they get bonuses based on their performance.
Right.
But this is just a gift from appreciation from TJ Nisbet Company to you as a Christmas gift bonus.
That's great.
And so they understand that I don't have to.
Yeah.
No one has to, but we do it. Throughout everything, like I think holding a promise, having credibility. Like every time if I tell my superintendent, I'm going to take care of you here or I'm going to do this, I live up to it. Yeah. And then, so when I ask them or if they ask me, look, I believe employment and owning a company, it goes two ways, right? I mean, if I'm just an owner of the company, I only expect from my employees, eventually they'll look at me and go, you're using us. But if they ask you for something and you're out there to help, then you do it. Like, for example, I have an employee that bought a house. I was able to pay for his materials. I was like, listen, let me help you. Like, I pushed you to buy a house because you needed to, but I'm able to help you. And what do you think he's going to do at the end of the day? He's going to go above and beyond to help. I have a superintendent.
You're adding value and you're doing life together.
Exactly, and that's what we're doing. I have a superintendent, for example, that everybody's like, well, how do you keep your superintendents? Like, ours come and go.
That's a common question for construction companies.
And I'm like, I allow them to add value to the project, which I reward them for. I have a superintendent that makes over $250,000 a year because of the value that he brings to the company and to the project. What do you think I'm going to do? Now, I could lose him if I don't keep my end of the bargain. But I don't. I do follow up. And if I said I'm going to talk to you in 6 months, I talk to you in 6 months. If I say I'm going to give you a bonus, I'm going to give you a bonus. Even if it hurts. Even if it's maybe seems like not right.
You're going to follow through on your word.
If you said it. So credibility. Like if you, so that's kind of what we've built within the company. It took a little while because there was some leadership previously that wasn't quite like that. So it took a shift. I started doing that and they started trusting me and respecting me because I showed them respect first.
Yeah, and they have to see the intrinsic value too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honestly, quite frankly, when you can have a culture in which people feel great and valued and a sense of security with also like a sense of urgency to perform, I think it's a fine balance.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah, please.
Most of the owners of businesses, they look at their employees as employees.
They do.
From a lens of, what would you do without me? I gave you a job.
What do you do for me? What have you done lately?
But you know what? I look at my employees I go, who am I without you guys?
Yes.
Sure, I can be the one that funds. Sure, I can be the one that carries the liability. Sure, I'm on top. But without you guys, I'm just a name.
Yeah. I said this once when like a couple people quit really fast. I looked at my director of operations and we had many offices and we were trying to expand nationally with our brokerage. And I'm like, man, I just got fired. It felt like I got fired. And in that moment, I started to realize when people quit, you just got fired as a boss. And if you aren't able to look at yourself and go, what am I doing? What am I not doing to help this person perform better? Because maybe they quit because they weren't performing, and you can always rationalize and justify, oh, they just weren't good enough. They didn't meet their standards. They didn't kill it. Well, you hired them for a reason. Think about that. Remind yourself of why you hired them. Maybe you wanted to give them a chance. Maybe you wanted to take a risk. Maybe you thought they could do something. How come they never met up to their expectations?
Yeah.
Raise your kids that same way.
Oh, absolutely.
It'll change your life. Work with your wife that same way. It'll change your life.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. Every employee that we hire, I go, I want to make you better than you are when you start.
Sure.
And I will follow up with you. And I will ask you, where are you struggling? And if there's concerns, I will bring them up and say, how can we pivot? How can we help you?
100%.
Now, if I've taken everything that I could to better you, but you came short, obviously, I still reassess myself. I go back and I go, where could we have done differently? What could we have done? Now, there are times where it's like, I've done everything. There's nothing you can do. It's interesting because my employees were laughing at me because I hired my daughter, the one that makes phenomenal quesadillas, to do work.
When did you hire her?
I hired her about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And she came in My wife hired her. She's like, I think it's time for Vanessa to do some work, learn the business.
Yeah.
She was doing some of the insurance reviews, like the policies, yada, yada.
Yeah, and getting quotes, all that stuff. Yeah.
So we taught her how to do it. She works for the first 3 weeks. Oh my, she is ecstatic. Like a paycheck, are you kidding me? Working in the office or working from
sharp
home.
and fun too, I love it.
But her friends got in her head. We went to the store, and my daughter is paying for herself. My wife's like, "You're working now.
Yeah.
You want this stuff? Pay for yourself." And as my daughter's paying, her friend goes, "Whatever. My mom would have paid and bought me that either way." And at that moment, my wife looked at my daughter and goes, I saw the shift in her reaction. A week goes by. She says, "Hey, Mom, can I not work because I have schoolwork that I need to catch up on?" Okay. A week goes by. A second week goes by. She's not reporting to work. She ain't working. She's collecting a paycheck. And I looked at my wife and I said, "You have to give her a warning, and if she doesn't fix herself, I'm going to fire her." She goes, "Okay." So she gives my daughter a written warning.
A little performance improvement.
What's going on? When you showing up to work?
Yeah.
If you don't fix this, you're going to get fired.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
She doesn't fix it. She shows up for a day, two, and then gone again. I call her in the office. I sit her down, and I looked at her. I'm like, "You've been warned. Babe, you're fired." And she's staring at me with these eyes like, "What just happened?"
This is so good.
I'm like, "You're fired." She goes, "What does that mean?"
Yeah, exactly. She
I'm like,
what does that mean?
"You're no longer employed.
Yeah.
You ain't receiving a check.
Yeah.
You have failed at your duty."
Yeah.
"Wait, what does that mean?" I'm like, "No more paycheck, and I don't want you working for me anymore. We're done." She walks out, and I saw a few tears in her eyes as she walked out. That hurt me.
Of course it hurt you, but you
because I
needed
knew
to do it.
she was in pain.
Yeah.
And last year, and she's already asked me a few times, "Dad, can I come work for you?" And I said, "Not until you put in 4 years of employment anywhere else.
Okay.
But TJ Nisbet,
so
I will not hire you anymore."
Good for you. So this is why she came to me at camp.
No way.
I'm dead serious.
Oh my
She
goodness.
came to me at camp and she was like, "So what do you think I should do for a job, Rudi?" And I'm laughing. I'm like, I had no idea the context of this. But I even sat with Julie and her. Eventually, we were like sitting there having tea in the evening.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "You need to go be a waitress." I'm like, "Go be a waitress and like wait tables and like and stuff like that." Because I asked her, I'm like, "Why didn't you go work with like your mom and stuff?" And now it's coming full circle as to why she responded the way she did. Anyway, so I was trying to hook her up with that restaurant in Happy Valley, that higher end restaurant, and I'm like, "Walk in there, wear all black. You're going to be a hostess. Offer to them that you will start anywhere because it's a family-owned business." I'm like, "But if you can get into a position of waiting tables at a young age, being a nice, charismatic girl, you're going to make great tips.
Yeah.
They're going to tip you well if you provide good service.
Yep.
And what you're going to learn is you're going to learn how to manage chaos.
Yep.
You're going to learn how to work with people. You're going to see different types of people in a very quick, fast-paced environment."
Thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
And so I'm like, "You need to learn those skills." And I just felt like sharing that with her. And I'm like, this is so good that I now have the context.
Now you understand.
For like her failure, which her failure, I don't think you realize how valuable you rising up and doing what you needed to do as a parent is going to do to serve her and her marriage and how she parents her kids.
See,
dude, and that was the hardest thing in the world for you to do.
It was.
But you did it, and it's because you're a parent first, and you'll be her friend later.
Absolutely. And I would love to have that relationship where we can just be friends.
You're going to laugh so hard about this.
We will. But I told her 4 years. Nothing sooner. Dang. So go figure it out.
She's like 14.
No.
She's 13.
She's turning 16 this Thursday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
So she's going guns blazing looking for a job.
She's trying to get a job quick.
She's trying to get a job because she really wants to come work for us now. And here's the cool part.
That's awesome.
A lot of guys are like, "Why don't you tell your kids to come work for you?" I've realized that if I'm going to push my company on my kids, they're not going to want it.
100%.
They're going to run from it. They're going to avoid it.
Yeah.
Do I want my kids working with me? You best believe it.
Everyone does.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Having your kids work in the same company, growing and doing life together, I'd love that.
Yeah.
But I will never force them.
Yeah.
And my kid, Jordan, he plays soccer. He plays in the league, and he's great at it. But I will not tell him, "Boy, step away from your dream to come work for me."
Yeah.
I want him to get there, develop, and go, "Okay, Dad, you know what? I really want to come work with you." But here's a key point, though. In order for that to happen, I have to show my kids that I have a balance and that my job isn't consuming 100% of my time, because they will hate me for that and they will never want to be in that business.
Yeah, and they'll never want to do business like that either.
Because no one wants to spend 80 hours a week. Now, don't get me wrong. I put them, when I'm going into a grind mode in my family, I tell my kids and my wife, you guys, this week's going to be hectic. I'll be gone most of the time. I'll be home this late, but I'll stop by and I'll give you hugs and kisses, yada, yada, yada. I warn them that it's going into it, but to allow my job to take 100% of my time and neglect my family, I will never do that again. I've learned. I've been there.
Yeah.
I ain't doing that again.
Dude, I've been there too. I almost lost my marriage recently, like within the last years, partly because of my blindness to my ambition and my work, and I was glorified by many people for how much hard work I put in. Yeah. But you know, my wife's sitting there going, "You said you'd be home by 6, and it's 8:30.
Where are you?"
Yeah, and you woke up early again and left, and we haven't seen you. And when you're home, you're occupied, you're preoccupied, you're not present, you know. And I had to change. I had to completely change. And to be honest with you, I work just as hard. But man, I'm way more efficient. I'm way more effective. But some people who have smaller minds look at me and go, "Oh, you don't work as late anymore." I go, "Actually, you don't realize I came back to the office at 10:30, and I worked till midnight." But that's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
You know, you saw me go on that trip, but you didn't realize that my wife and I, we didn't have dinner for 4 nights leading up to that, knowing though that we would spend a few days together. So I think there's a balance, and it's really about creating expectations, like you said. That's what I heard. I heard you say, like, I began creating expectations with my wife and my kids to where they know what they're going to get, and I try to really follow through on that. If I make a mistake, I apologize.
Absolutely.
And we work through it, and we learn things. There's so much gold in this. With that being said, I want to ask you, what when you're 85 years old, okay, and you're nearing the end, right? What do you want your grandchildren to say and think and believe about Paul?
That's deep. That's deep. Honestly, I just want to be the best grandpa ever. That is willing to help, that's willing to mentor. Yeah. That new balance. That was never on either to the left or to the right. Yeah. Interesting thing, balance is I preach it at home to my kids. I learned it. God taught me balance. So my kids, they know balance. I tell them. It's interesting that I took away my kids' electronics because of balance. So I want my kids, I want my grandkids to look at me and go, that's a man of balance. Yeah. That's a man that knows when it's okay to have fun. That the man knows when to work. The man knows when to slow down. The man knows when to excel. Yeah. That would be huge for me.
That's incredible.
That would be huge for me.
I love it, bro. That's so insightful.
And I don't plan to retire.
I don't either. Somebody asked me the other day, they go, you know, so are you going to keep working? You know, if I basically make a bunch of money, like, are you going to keep working? And I looked at him, and I have a profound respect for this guy. And I was like, it's interesting that you asked me that. And I know where he's at, and I know that he's an incredibly hard worker, and he's sacrificed a ton. And he wants to have kids, and he will, and he's going to be a phenomenal father. And he's going through this thought process of, like, you know, I want to make a certain amount of money. I want to grow to this, and it's a measure of success for him. And I know personally, because I know his heart, I know his mind. He's brilliant. When he has kids, I think it's going to hit him. I think it's going to hit him that it's more about purpose than possession. It is. It's about finding your passion and your purpose. And my response to him when he said that, because I thought deeply for like a split second, I'm like, oh, this is passion for me. This is purpose. You know, what I'm doing is it's part of my life. Yeah. It is. And I put in the hours because I want to, not because I'm trying to impress anybody, but I want to get the job done. You know, and I had this mission statement for my life that I crafted a few years ago with a good friend of mine who did some coaching with me. I want to create space such that people can grow in character and become more substantial. Buy their first home. have kids and feel good about it.
There you go.
Want to work in a company forever, add value to their community, be that through their church, organizations, whatever. But they've grown in character so much that they're adding so much value, there's substance there.
Right.
And my job as a leader, as a boss, is to do my best to create that environment, create that space, have the ambition to go and start that company, to do this thing that's going to have that mission statement, that philosophy behind it, and hold people accountable.
There you go.
Help them truly grow with truth. With truth.
Absolutely.
The truth that will seriously set you free from yourself.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So where we're going though now with TJ Nisbet and
where we're going
is, I mean, you guys are expanding incredibly. I want you to shed a little bit of light on where you want to go, dollars and cents. I want to get a concept for like where are you guys at now in terms of like annual revenue. What are you guys doing? We talked about you started out with $20-30 million company in terms of like work completed.
We've tripled from there.
Tripled from there.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. And you've done that because you've just kept doing the same thing? Have you niched into something different?
We have. Right now we're actually, recently, we started doing more of a design builds.
Design builds.
Like, for example, Burgerville is one of our new clients that we picked up as they were bought out. The first time, Burgerville was sold from the original family, the founders of Burgerville. And when they got bought out, we were part of the team that was going, hey, here's the prototype that we're helping design of what is to come of next chapter for Burgerville.
Incredible.
Because they're looking to franchise out.
Yeah.
So we're adding value to them by helping them design because we have a lot of connections. We understand who the furniture people are and so on and so forth. So we started doing a lot of more design builds. There's a golf course up in Westland that we broke ground on. It's a short par 3, 18 hole or 19 hole. But
so you're doing development.
We are, but we're also helping them to design it. We put proper architects, proper designers in place, engineering. So that's a new part of TJ Nisbet that we started doing.
Beautiful. It's all encompassing. It's holistic, really.
It's
holistic in a sense. And Burgerville is like the in and out of the Northwest.
It is.
How many locations do they have at this point?
They have 56.
56
and there's
locations.
14 new locations coming.
That's awesome.
We are working on 2 right now.
Yeah.
And they're talking possibilities of franchising out first time in
Yeah, because they're family owned. Like In and Out is family owned.
Correct. Correct.
That's cool.
Now I don't know if it's going to go into that, but I know they're talking about franchising.
Yeah.
But furthermore, where are we going with TJ Nisbet? I'll be honest with you. God's leading us in many ways. There's people that are called to go on missionary fields. There's people that are called to be a pastor.
Yeah.
I believe we're called to grow as a company and help financially.
Yeah.
Missionary fields, churches,
Yeah.
wherever God takes us. I actually had an event where we're helping Odessa with the Cold War and everything.
Yeah. This is Odessa, Ukraine.
My wife and I, we started talking because end of the year came. We're like, we're going to donate as a company. Okay, where do we want to donate? Let's talk about it. And we started talking about it. And one of the factors was Odessa was brought up. And my wife and I, we started looking. We're like, how much? Because it always ends with how much. And for me, if I'm donating, I want my wife to be in the known. Like it's money, right? At the end of the day,
you're doing it together.
And she is owning 50. She needs to approve it, right? And it's interesting because we both agreed.
Yeah.
For example, I'm just going to throw a number in there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually going to say a number. We decided for Odessa to donate $51,000. Okay, 50 or 51. For some people, it's like, well, that's nothing. But for some people, it's like, dang, that's a lot of money. But for us, that number resonated in our hearts. Why? Well, we prayed on it and came up with that. So we donated. A few days later, I get a call from the pastor that we donated to that charity. He goes, Paul, can we just tell you something? I'm like, what's going on? He goes, 3 days ago, we started praying fasting. And we were short $50,000.
Wow.
And we were praying fasting for that.
For that specific.
And 3 days later, there's a deposit that comes through TJ Nisbet Construction.
Yeah.
We just want to say, thank you, God answered our prayers.
That's incredible.
So that's kind of what I want for TJ Nisbet. I want to be able to donate. But more importantly, I want to be connected and with God to see where he wants me to go. Yes, growth is going to happen. Our company's growing fast. Think about it. Within the last 2-3 years, we've doubled, tripled.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
God's sending great talent into our company.
Yeah.
And most importantly, 95% of my employees, our employees, are Christian.
Yeah.
Not because when we interview them, we ask them.
Yeah.
They get hired, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, I go to church. I'm a Christian.
How do the other 5% handle being in such a Christian environment?
They don't mind it because they say that we love the atmosphere. Because in all reality, we have no drama.
Yeah.
People are respectful to each other. I hired an employee that constantly felt like scared. You could see he's scared so no one jeopardizes his employment. It's almost like he was scared so no one can stab him in the back. And I had to sit him down and say, listen.
So it was very guarded. He just wouldn't like.
Something happens. Why are you doing that? Well, why are you asking? What are you doing? And I had to sit him down like, listen, your employment is safe. And no matter who says about you here, I don't believe it. So just relax. No one wants your job. No one's gunning for your job. 5-6 months later, he comes in and goes, this is one of the most funnest and greatest and environments. He goes, I'm not scared that someone wants to take my job or someone's trying to get me fired. He goes, I can see that everybody's just doing their job and doing it with passion and enjoying.
Yeah.
And so that is something that we've established as a culture in our company.
It's beautiful.
And when new people come in,
yeah,
they see that. Because at the end of the day, no one wants to hurt anyone else. I mean, we're all, at the end of the day, we're scared of God. I'm scared of God. I mean,
there's a fear of the Lord
absolutely.
In a Christian sense, there's a healthy fear of God. People have a very weird idea of the fear of God. There's a very religious bend.
Yeah.
The fear of God, he will smite me if I screw up.
Right.
Man, there's a fear of the Lord that is really this reverence and respect for your Creator, because you've been brought to a place of real humility to go, man, like I just want to do great things and be a great person. And honestly, like, your prescription to this is the way, and it's true. And I want to do good. I want to do good by people, and I want to love people well, because the mark of a true Christian is loving other people well through their hard stuff, their ugly stuff, and all of it. And what are you going to do to actually be somebody to help them get there?
Right. And
you are doing that with your company. You're doing that in your family. I caught it even when we recently kind of like connected truly. And so it's a pleasure, man. I feel honored to have been able to sit with you, and I want to sit with Julie. I want Julie to come. I want her to speak to the other half of TJ Nisbet, the other CEO in growing this multiple $100 million company is where you guys are headed. You know?
We're headed larger.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, yes, as much as it's God centered and we love it, but by the time I retire, I would love to look at a company that's $1 billion company.
You'll get there. You will. And you'll get there pretty quickly.
And I know and I trust that with right steps, with God, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I never thought, if I look back, when I started doing hardwood floors, to sit in a seat where I am today, be where I'm at today, it would have seemed impossible.
Yeah.
But with God, it's possible. And so here's the cool part. I remember when I was doing hardwood floors and those skyscrapers, I remember I was just intrigued by how someone can build such a massive building.
That's incredible.
Now it's my goal to build a skyscraper.
Yeah.
I'm headed that way. I actually have a big development coming down in Palm Springs that we have 12 buildings that we're looking to put up, a huge development that I'm excited to be part of. So we're building big things. And most importantly, we're having fun. And everybody's making money, and we are able to sponsor, we're able to donate. That's who we are. That's where we're going.
So leave us with this. What is one thing that you would just tell your younger self? What is the one thing you would tell your younger self?
Never kill your ambition.
Wow.
Ambition is what brought me here.
Wow.
Being ambitious. My wife, someone asked my wife, I think it was one of the conference we had, they asked, how would your husband look like if you took one thing away? She goes, if you take away ambition from my husband, he's a walking corpse. So ambition is what got me to where I'm at, because I've always believed and just never let anything scare me.
Yeah.
I look at something, and if I know who's with me, I know who's behind me, why would I fail? So I just go.
So good.
So that's what I would leave everyone.
I love it, brother. Thank you so much. It's been awesome. Guys, this was incredible, man. We got into some faith talk and stuff.
We did.
And,
we did.
You know, you'll find that I am a Christian, and I don't declare it all the time on social media and whatnot. I try to live it, truly. I think Paul is a great example of somebody who is he's living a great example, and that's the key. Be a good example to people. And as we're building companies and doing this stuff, man, just find your source of truth. That's what I would say. Find your source of truth, be convicted, and be good to people. And man, incredible time. We're gonna have great. Julie on next. I'm so honored and blessed to have this, and thank you guys for all those that are watching. This is the end of this episode of the Lunatic CEO with Paul Frantchuk from TJ Nisbet Construction.
Thank you, Rudi.
They're going big places, and you know what? If you want to work in construction, you go work for this guy.
We're always hiring.
Have a great one. See you later.